Today, there are 2 million descendants of French-Canadian immigrants living in New England. These are our stories. Welcome to the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast.
Venez tous jeunes filles et garçons, je vais vous raconter l'histoire de notre immigration ici au USA, de grands aventuriers, de pays étrangers.
This is the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast. I am Jesse Martineau. Now, this week's episode is a first for the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast, because on this show we've interviewed film directors, politicians, historians, actors, poets, novelists, college professors, all kinds of researchers, musicians, playwrights. But I believe this will be the first interview we have with an active professional athlete, which is pretty exciting. And I'm sure somebody will write in to correct me if I'm actually missing someone. This week's guest is Sarah Lefort, a forward on the Montreal Women's Professional Hockey League team. And as we are conducting this interview coming off a game-winning goal and a 2-1 victory over Minnesota, Sarah, welcome to the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
All right, cool. So before we get talking about your professional hockey career, I'd like to get your story before that, if possible. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ormstown, Quebec, a small town approximately an hour from Montreal.
Okay, now, obviously your English is terrific. Did you grow up speaking English?
Both my mom's English and my dad's French. So I went to English school, but we spoke both at home, and I spoke mostly French with hockey.
Very cool. Now, the town you're from, does that have a lot of both spoken there?
Yeah, I would say
Really?
both
Cool.
there, English and French. Yeah, it's a good mix.
Very awesome. Now, when did you start playing hockey?
When I was 3, I think was the first time I started playing. Officially 4 was the first season I played.
Now, what does 4-year-old girls hockey look like in Quebec?
I played with the boys.
Oh, awesome.
Small town, everybody kind of just got put in together. I would say it looks like an old barn. The first Huntington
awesome.
was the first arena that I grew up playing at. Very cold rink, but nonetheless a great one for my childhood.
Now, very cool. Now, did you guys have like school teams when you got to like middle school, stuff like that?
Not particularly. I played a little bit with Chateauguay Valley, which was my public high school. And then
Gotcha.
I did go to a prep school after that for 10, 11, 12. So originally, no, it was just kind of the municipal and then kind of the travel sports teams, and then followed up by the prep school.
Yeah, I was going to ask because I mean, one of the many jobs I had in the past, I was a teacher at a middle school, and some of the students that I worked with went to high school to a prep school to go play hockey. A lot of them down in Connecticut for some reason.
Yeah.
But apparently that's good to know. That's a thing everywhere, I guess. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I would say a little bit less in Quebec, just because you come out of high school and you go to CEGEP, which is kind of an interim between high school and university. But I chose to go kind of probably more typical American route with the grade 12.
That's I've had a really hard time during because I learned about CEGEP. I spent 6 months in Quebec City a couple of years ago, and the school I went to was in like the same building as a CEGEP. But try to explain to Americans what that is
It's
not
tough.
super easy. Yeah,
No,
it's just an entirely different system. But
it is. It is.
gotcha. So, did you play anything else growing up, or is it just hockey pretty much?
No, I played a bunch of different sports. I played rugby, I played soccer, I played baseball. I dabbled in tennis when I went to Stansted. A little bit of everything, some cross-country running in there as well.
So, first of all, that's awesome, because I know an issue that we're having around here, not an issue, but a trend we're seeing around here is that a lot of people are specializing in one sport only, younger and younger than ever before. Is that similar up there in Quebec?
Yes, I think there's a lot of pressure to perform within your sport, but what I think a lot of people aren't realizing is just there's a lot of crossovers between sports, a lot of skill sets that you can develop overall that'll really help you out in the long run. Sports are now a business, so I think we tend to over focus on where we want to be, and instead of just enjoying, developing the athlete as a whole. it's a little unfortunate, but I do see that trend myself as well.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that resonates with me for sure is because I know if I had chosen when I was much younger, I would have chosen, I don't know, probably basketball or whatever. But I found rugby myself in high school is when I ended up playing in college. I ended up coaching at a couple of different colleges. So where did you play rugby? How did you find yourself
I
involved in that sport? 'Cause that's my
Yeah,
favorite sport now.
Ormstown is a big rugby town.
Is it really? That's
It's a
amazing.
massive rugby town. I was kind of forced to play. No, but
That's a good thing.
the,
That's
the
cool.
the high school I went to, I started playing in grade 7, kind of 7 through 11. I played in through school. I think it's a great sport. It's a great team sport. It's nice to be out there, and I think it's one sport that maybe gets a little less attention in Quebec, but nonetheless, I'm very happy to have played that sport.
And the Canadian women's team is really damn good at rugby, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
That's
they are.
awesome.
They're great.
Now, is it like a varsity sport, like in the high schools and stuff? Oh, that's so cool.
And even before that too. So,
Oh, I'm jealous.
and then there's some club rugby every summer. So I haven't gotten myself into that yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, when you retire from hockey, there'll
Yeah.
be plenty of opportunity to get involved. That's the good thing about rugby. You can be involved forever. All right, awesome. Now, so one of the things I picked up on your bio, you're a member of the Team Quebec team at the 2011 Canada Winter Games.
Mhm.
Can you just what is that about? What is that like? We don't have like the American Winter Games here in the States.
It's kind of every province has a team, and it's kind of, if you will, a mini Olympics. So that's uh, kind of what it is. I was grateful to play for Team Quebec. So as we said before, like just growing up playing with a lot of boys, and everybody's kind of just picked off these boys teams, and it was the first time that I really played girls hockey. So that was a great experience to know that I'm not the only one, and that others were doing the kind of the same things in their neck of the woods of the province. So great tournament, and just got to meet some great athletes.
And this is all like people before college who do this?
Yeah. Yep.
That's amazing.
So it would be under 18 kind of thing.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, that'd be awesome. We don't have like a New Hampshire versus Vermont competition of any
It'd be
kind like
great.
that. No, yeah, it'd be a blast. Yeah, for sure. But speaking of U18, you did play the U18 World Championships. And first of all, how did that even come about? Like, is that team you are asked to join? Do you try out for? Like, how does one even find themselves on that club?
Right. You get invited to camp. So there's selection camps, there's fitness testing camps as well. And then there's a whole selection process leading up to that tournament. I was grateful enough to make that roster. I was, unfortunately, I was injured going into one of the late August camps. So I was extremely happy to get that call come the tournament. So what a great experience. Honestly, wearing the jersey for the first time is, there's no words for it. And that tournament was in Czech Republic. So
That's
great
amazing.
experience traveling as well. And we came up with gold. So I couldn't have asked for a better experience for my first international tournament.
Yeah, I've seen that the gold medal game went pretty well for you personally as well. I saw. You played against the States, right? So it
Yeah,
is. That's
yeah,
very cool. No, I'm jealous. I can't imagine. Were you 17 years old and hanging out in Czech Republic?
yeah.
That's
And my
that's.
family made the trip out, so it was even better. Cherry on the Sunday for that
I
that tournament.
bet. Oh, that's so cool. Very, very awesome. Now, at what point did it occur to you? You know what? I'm probably gonna try to play college hockey.
At the point where I was playing in prep school, and I was trying, like, getting noticed by some local schools, University of Vermont, University of New Hampshire. So just getting noticed, I think that's when it kind of clicked that I was probably gonna go to the States and play college hockey. So for me, it was just taking all the offers and just seeing what I think fit me best. Going on a college visits, having my mom drive me, and taking a look at each school. That was kind of my process.
No, that's very. Now, is that like super common? Did a lot of like your U18 teammates all end up in the States playing hockey? Is that
I
like
would
the normal
say,
progression? Yeah.
yeah, I would say probably 95% if
Oh,
I had
really?
to throw a percentage out. Yeah. Not to say that there isn't good college hockey in Canada. There definitely is. I just think at that point in time, the development on the women's side was a little bit more progressed in the States.
Okay, cool. So you decided after you touring some places somehow, after looking at Durham, New Hampshire, decided Boston would be a more exciting place to live, which I suppose I can understand. I would agree with that myself. But now what was your first impression of the city of Boston? You first arrived there.
So from a small town, went to a very small prep school of about 200 people.
Wow,
I
okay.
think I wanted to change. When I first visited Boston, I was like, wow, this city's awesome. It's vibrant, it's active, it's young, and they've got great professional sports such as the Red Sox. So to me, it was kind of an unknown charted territory, but I figured why not experience a city like Boston for my 4 years.
And for those who are not from this area, first of all, BU is right in the middle of town, which is very awesome. And I'm pretty sure per capita, Boston has more college students than any other city in the entire United States. So I would imagine that's a pretty fun place to go to school.
Yeah,
Now,
it's up there.
and did you get to go to some Fenway games
I
while
did.
you were
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the girls, we would just scalp tickets every now and then and go to the game. And even in the summer, a few of us stayed and trained on campus. So when we had some time, we definitely caught a few games.
And you saw a championship while you were there, which is very
I
awesome.
did. I did. I remember that year. Everybody was out in the streets after that. So pretty memorable moments.
Yeah, I remember that some of that parade anyway. That was a really good time. But just bigger picture, I mean, coming down from Quebec, obviously the people that we talk to quite a bit here, who grow up in Canada, they tend to, especially Quebec, they tend to not know a ton about Franco-Americans or that we exist or have any kind of contact with them, even if they do come to town. Did you have any clue at all that there was an entire community of crazies like myself who are hanging on like crazy to try to hold on to that connection to Quebec?
I can't say that I did. I grew up in parts of Maine, and I know there's pockets here and there. So
For sure.
my knowledge of it was probably slim. I knew it did exist, but I can't say that I'm very educated about it.
Yeah, that seems to be fairly common. It was a surprise to quite a few people I found when I went up there for the 6 months, which is kind of fun. No, I think it's an opportunity for me anyway. It was kind of cool to have those conversations. People were excited to hear that, yeah, there's entire groups that get together, speak French to each other sometimes. It's fun.
That's,
But yeah, no, awesome. But yeah, so where'd you go in Maine though?
I grew up kind of. We would always go for 2 weeks in the summer, Kennebunkport, just kind of a vacation, family vacation. So very fortunate to have that time too and spend it on the beach in the sun.
My sister lives at Wells. Very, very awesome.
There you go.
Now, you started very first game as a freshman, BU, come in, score a couple goals against Boston College. I'm assuming at that point you just call your family, start talking about how easy college hockey was at this stage.
No, honestly, I remember the game. I was pretty nervous leading up to the game, but I figured, it's a sport that I've been playing forever, and just go out and have fun. And not gonna lie, I had some pretty good line mates, so hats off to them as well. They made my first game one to remember.
Now, considering your background, you played, internationally at that U18 level. What was Hockey East like when you walked in to play hockey? Maybe describe for those, I mean, people in New England, we all know what Hockey East is. But maybe describe for people who might not be from this area, what is Hockey East and what was your initial impression of playing at that level?
Hockey East, look, it ebbs and flows. I know if you talk to people about Hockey East nowadays, the way to describe it is a little bit different. Back in my days, Hockey East was one of the strongest divisions in college hockey for women. Definitely had some really good teams and some really good players. For me it was a factor when I decided to go to BU was to try and play the best hockey that I could, face the best teams that were out there.
Yeah, and people who are very, very passionate about their alma mater, especially they still come to the games for forever. I mean, it means a big deal. I mean, which you don't see it a lot of other places in this country for sure.
Oh, it is for sure.
No, my sister went to Providence, so I'm
Well,
semi-familiar with it.
that school was up in my top four, I would say. So great school as well, not too far. So
Another fun town.
yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely fun town to be in. All right, very, very awesome. Obviously, you went on to have a ridiculous career at Boston University. Second player BU program history to be a second team All American, unanimous Hockey East Player of the Year, lead the nation in goals, BU program record for goals and points. That's all absolutely incredible. Just what is that like when you come from a different country, you end up in an amazing city of Boston, and now you're just doing things that nobody in your program, a storied program, has ever even done before. That's just incredible.
Yeah, I think I took it one day at a time. I never focused on the numbers. I just was there to have fun and to play alongside my teammates. No matter who you were in the locker room, it was like a family. So for me, it was just having fun every day with the girls on the ice, and what came of it was something pretty good.
I would imagine that sounds pretty good. During this, you also played at the Four Nations Cup. What is the Four Nations Cup? What is that about?
It's like the same kind of tournament for Worlds U18, but it's just a different age bracket. So it's under 22. It's kind of the next progression in international play when you're trying to edge on to the senior Olympic team.
Very fun. Now, when you're at BU, you're accomplishing all these things. At what point does it start occurring to you that there might be an opportunity to play this, maybe even for a living once I'm done school?
Well, when I graduated, I went into the CWHL. I would say was that the thought? Not necessarily. I knew I wanted to keep playing my sport. To do it for a living, I would say is a newer goal. Has kind of flourished with these professional leagues that have come up. But in my day, coming out of college, it wasn't a viable route for a lot of people.
Gotcha. No, because I saw even before that you were drafted by a Buffalo
Yeah,
Peanuts.
the Buffalo Buttes.
How is it that you possibly turned down an opportunity to play for the Buffalo Peanuts? That's amazing.
That was at the time there was kind of two different leagues. I decided to come home and play Montreal, and I don't know. I kind of just decided to go from Boston back to Montreal and to see where sports would take me.
I mean, having been to Buffalo and spent some time in Montreal, I don't think that's a very difficult decision. But sorry to all my listeners in Buffalo. But we talked about the Tom and the CWHL. Can you just talk about a little bit what that league was like and kind of what that
Uh,
experience was about?
the experience was just coming out of college and keeping the dream alive, playing with the girls that had graduated, playing with a lot of players that had played, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 years out of college. So Canadian Women's Hockey League teams kind of a little bit everywhere scattered across between, Montreal to Calgary. So, you would go to practice late at night and you would play on the weekends and you would also work your 9 to 5 job. So it was just for those who absolutely love the game and wanted to keep it as part of their lives.
That sounds a lot about how people are playing professional rugby on this continent right now. Kind of that
Yeah.
same thing. And I can't imagine the schedule of trying to maintain a 9 to 5 while also doing everything you can to maintain the schedule of a professional athlete must be brutal, I think.
It's a little hectic, but nonetheless, one that I definitely embraced for quite some time.
And now, how did your time in the CWHL come to an end then?
The league folded.
There you go.
There weren't enough funds, and that kind of came crashing down. I remember we were all kind of at one of our last games, and they announced that the league was going to be folding, and everybody was kind of a little bit devastated that we wouldn't have a viable place to play.
And that's not going to be the last time we hear that in your story, unfortunately. So going on, the Premier Hockey Federation's Montreal Force. How did you end up with them?
The PHF decided to expand to Montreal. I got invited to try out for this team, and I went for it. And I think it was just a great opportunity to keep playing. An opportunity that was a little bit better suited for my schedule at that point in time. It allowed me to get on the ice every day. It allowed me to compete again on a team. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It allowed me to keep my job and play for Montreal.
Now, you mentioned kind of keeping your job. I mean, a lot of what you read about this league anyway, at least leading up toward the end of this league, was that this was a league that's going to offer real money, real, actual big time professional athlete cash for people, so they don't have to have a separate side job. So how was that transition as you do have your regular 9 to 5 that you're trying to do, but now we're starting to hear word that, wait a minute, this is going to be a full-time gig for everybody pretty soon.
Yeah, I was transitioning to a full-time gig for sure. I just kept my job, not, I wouldn't say I kept my 40 hours a week. I probably kept 20 to 25 a week during the season. But yeah, we were on the ice every day, every afternoon, and traveling on the weekends. So, for me, I was able to balance both, and not to undermine the money that we were making playing. There's for sure certain athletes that were making enough to live off that full time, definitely. Sure. And we were getting there. I think, as you'll mention a little bit later, the league kind of shutting down as well. That was definitely the hopes coming into this year prior to everything coming down.
And yeah, the league obviously, yeah, we'll talk about the league did shut down, but it seemed to have shut down at a time where at least everything publicly coming out was salary cap expansion. We're going to be signing a whole bunch of these new players for, a bunch of 6-figure deals, very healthy 6-figure deals, rumored in some cases. And then all of a sudden, it seems like, boom, like at least from an outsider's perspective, seemed like done. Now, do you have any heads up this was coming at all?
I can picture that exact moment. I was out to dinner with some of the girls that I played with, actually, and we actually found out through Twitter.
Are you kidding?
So it was a moment where I think you stop and you go, was it too good to be true? You start re-questioning, are you still going to play? Can you still play? Everything comes in question. Some people moved to be able to play. Some people were questioning that as well. Like, what do I do? What's the next step? And I think that for me was just a day where, take a deep breath and you'll figure it out and things will come together. And that's how we all kind of had to think coming through the summer and hoping for the best.
Now, one thing I'm interested in, because again, we're seeing this, again, the sport I probably know best now is rugby, and there's the Major League Rugby here in North America, and some teams that went under. And one of the first things you hear about when something like that happens is the reaction of the group trying to start a players association and kind of how that goes about. Did you guys have a players association? Do you have agents, or are you seriously just by yourself now picking up the phone trying to find a new place to play hockey?
I think the tough part was, yes, there was the Premier Hockey Federation, the PHF, and you did have the PWHPA, which is Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. Those both coincided with their own entities. I was part of the Players Association prior to going to the PHF, and I think for me, I made a decision because I was just tired of waiting. The PHF gave me an opportunity to play for a team, and so yes, to answer your question, there was a players association with some of the best players in this in this world, but it wasn't coming together quickly enough. And I honestly ask myself every year, is this going to be my last? So deciding to play for the PHF was just kind of me being a kid again, wanting to play for a team, wanting to play for something bigger than myself. Bigger than just a players association as well. The sale of the PHF and that coming down, and now this new league, I think is what we've been fighting for quite some time. We want all the best players to be playing in the same league. We want it to be viable. We want salaries to be a living wage, and we want everything to be professional. The product itself to be professional, and to be to the highest skill set that it can possibly be.
Yeah, and I mean, credit to you guys, because to me, just the uncertainty of year over year, not entirely sure what the following year is going to bring. I think especially when you're living in an athlete's life where there's limited places you can live limited jobs you can have that allow you to carry that schedule, that's got to be brutal, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you find a way to make it work, I'd say. But you're right. You have to get a job where they're going to be a little bit more flexible, where you're going to go to training in the morning and you're going to go to work, and then after that, you're probably going to go practice. So a little bit of time management as well, a little bit of meal prepping.
Sure.
That goes with it for sure.
And how long after you got that, checking your Twitter to find out the league's going under until you start hearing that, wait a minute, we got this great new thing that's about to be starting up?
Yeah, I would say, league kind of went down in, call it June, and we were hearing about the new league probably by the end of August, beginning of September. But nothing was concrete at the, we didn't have details about the draft. We didn't have details, kind of how many teams, where the locations would be, kind of the rules that the draft would be as well. So that was all up in the air. I knew I wanted to play. I didn't know if I would go drafted, undrafted. I didn't know kind of what I was up against. So
Sure.
kind of just kept training throughout the summer and kept my head down and focusing on the things that I could control.
Now, and how do you make yourself eligible for this draft? Like, how did that process even work?
Yeah, you just had to kind of apply to be in the draft, and kind of be free to go to any market if need be, and if you were drafted.
That's wild. I mean, coming off a league that just died, and now you have to be willing. Yeah, if you get drafted by Minnesota, you got to go to Minnesota. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we were all fighting for it. We knew it was going to be eminent that this new league would be coming up, and that this is what it means to be a professional athlete.
And what was it like then when you got the phone call telling you you're going to Montreal? That must have been the
No,
relief among all the relief, no?
I didn't get drafted. Realistically, I was invited to try like two camps. So I was invited
Gotcha.
to New York, was invited to Montreal. I decided to stay in Montreal, stay home, play for the Montreal fans, play close to my family. To me, it was just staying close to home and playing the sport I love in the city that I love.
That's an even better situation then. To be able to, I mean, at least have some choice of where you end up.
Yeah, I mean,
That's huge.
Yeah, it worked out in my favor. I think you're not wrong when you say kind of a better situation. I got to pick where I really wanted to go, and the team that I wanted to play for.
How many of the people that you had played with in the previous league, just either players or staff, just have not found themselves a new job, and that was kind of the end for them?
A few, I would say, percentage-wise, I can't even throw out a
No, of
number.
course, yeah.
But definitely a few. I know there's some players that ended up in some Europe teams, which
Okay,
good for them.
sure.
Some great hockey over there as well. But in terms of staff, yeah, there's a lot that just never found anything like it. Especially professional sports is a tough industry, whether you're women on the women's side or the men's side. There's limited amount of spots, limited jobs, so it was a lot to take in all at the same time.
But now we're on to something fun and exciting with a cool new league going on now. I've been able to catch a game when you guys played Boston, which was way fun. Although the game was Lowell, which made me laugh. They were playing Boston and Lowell, but that's a whole different topic. Those of us from here know Lowell is not Boston. But I mean, it is just a pretty fun league. Again, if you're from New England, you catch the games here on Nesson, which is awesome. That's a very, very cool thing to watch the games on TV. So what has your experience been like? And talk about this new league in general. Obviously, we got to leave on the high talking about this league because this is exciting.
No, the new league is great. It provides a great product. I think just the fan viewership has provided value to what we bring to the ice, and this league is unmatched. I think the greatest players are playing on the ice right now. Not to say the travel's not tough, not to say that everything is absolutely perfect, because it's a first year, it's an inaugural year, so we're ironing out the kinks, but definitely to play, in Scotiabank where it's absolutely packed and sold out. And also just to see the young girls and the young boys in the stands, showing that this is an option. It is an option coming out of college that you can play professional sports, can play professional hockey as well is a dream come true.
I will say when I went, there was certainly more people in attendance than I expected to see at
Yeah.
a game, which was very cool. And the energy at that in the place was much higher than I would have expected coming in, knowing nothing really about the league before showing up for that. So that was awesome.
Definitely. It's we've had some record-breaking crowds. First one in Minnesota, then in Toronto. We've had a few in Montreal as well. So it's getting there.
Which is very, very cool. Now, is that allowing you anyway at this point, you and your teammates, to think more long picture than the year over year?
I wish, but honestly, the first kind of trade happened, and I think it also just puts it into perspective. Like, again, you're a professional athlete, you can get traded at any point in time. There's been a lot of movement lately, just with some teams kind of getting rid of players. So I think it brings this whole other aspect of it's a job now, and definitely professional sports, like any other sport, you got to perform. You got to be on every practice, every game, and that's something that comes with this kind of job.
And how's the travel?
The job is good. Like we can't complain. We're traveling, we're flying, we're busing, but it's part of any professional sports. And right now, we just personally love to go play in packed arenas. So,
which is way fun. I mean, you guys got right on a bus and went back home after your game here, from my understanding. That's some dedication.
We just have to get home, get the equipment at home, and the next day is practice, or right after games is workouts, and it's for us to be able to put the best product on the ice.
And I think big picture, which is absolutely awesome, you get to play a game that you've been playing since you were 3 years old professionally in front of excited crowds with cable television airing the games. That's just an amazing life. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, no, it is. And I remember just taking a picture of my skates before I got on for a pregame skate one day, sending it to my brother, and he goes, "You're living the dream." And I do believe that. I do believe that I do get this opportunity that not a lot of people get. And I kind of try and take the little things and look at the bigger picture, like you said, and just cherish every moment.
Seems like things have worked out, because you've been involved in 2 separate leagues going under and still find yourself in this amazing situation, which is very, very cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I can't say, you live and you learn. There's some bumps in the road, but definitely looking at long term, and I'm very happy with where I'm at.
All right. So I can't leave without this last super, super important question. When are you guys actually going to get team names? What?
Hey.
I have to tell you, this, when we go to the game and it's like, it's got the Montreal team versus the Boston team. At some point, somebody's got to name these things so we can have cool jerseys or some kind of merch that says more than just a city's name.
Agreed. I think, the last thing on the mind for people organizing the league is kind of the logos and the names. Unfortunately, there's a lot to pull together. Logistics are one of them. Markets were one for a while that I know that they wanted to make sure that they had, the best markets for the 6 first teams. And
sure,
it was a lot to pull together. Like, we kind of established the leagues were talking around August, and we were playing by January. So a lot to pull together, but I think they'll definitely be coming in the next couple of years, if it's not already next year.
I would think year 2. We need cool names and logos for sure.
Yeah,
that needs to be top of the agenda.
So that would be awesome, but we'll see.
Well, this was cool. Sarah, this has been a blast. Again, we've been speaking with Sarah Lefort of the Montreal Professional Women's Hockey League franchise, team name to be determined in the future. Sarah, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now our fathers look at us and sigh with despair, to think that everything they love we simply do not share. But the spirit never dies, our culture will survive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive.
Special thanks to Josie Vachon for providing the music. You can find more about her at josievachon.com. This podcast was produced and edited by Mike Campbell. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at fclpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FCL Podcast for more information about the topics discussed. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this episode.